After an offseason filled with turmoil, it's been a successful season for the Brooklyn Nets. It's actually been quite drama-free, which is surprising considering in the offseason there were rumors around Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant demanded a trade request, then Durant supposedly wanted the GM and head coach Steve Nash fired. Steve Nash did end up getting fired, but that's really been the only blip in the radar for the Nets. Now, according to reports, Kyrie Irving wants to stay long-term, Kevin Durant doesn't want out, and the Brooklyn Nets are looking to buy at the NBA trade deadline in order to chase an NBA championship ring. In this video, we'll talk about what the Nets need to address at this year's trade deadline, some moves that they could potentially do, and we'll even take a look at their payroll, which is enormous. They're paying a ton of luxury tax. But before we jump into all that, this trade deadline preview is presented by BetOnline. If you use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, you can receive a 50% reward bonus on BetOnline. The Super Bowl's coming up. Of course, NBA action is in full swing. You can get in on any of that action over at BetOnline. Also, on my bigger Blazers-oriented channel, as I am a Blazers fan, I will be hosting a trade deadline live stream. That'll be a 5 or 6 hour stream where we have all the graphics that we show in these trade deadline previews. That'll be me and my co-host Derek Brandt. Definitely subscribe to that channel if you want to catch that. Anyway, with that being said, let's jump into it. As of right now, the Nets are 31-19, which is good for 4th place in the East. They're good on both sides of the ball, ranking 6th on adjusted offensive rating and 10th on the defensive end. Of course, they got some star power with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, but Nicholas Claxton has taken a jump this year and is in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. The Nets are the most efficient team in the NBA. They're efficient from the rim, mid-range, and 3. They also are really good at protecting the rim. Their biggest weakness, however, is rebounding. They're one of the worst rebounding teams. They also don't defend the three-point line too well, and they don't get to the free throw line a lot. They also got a couple trade exceptions that they can put in play. Those can be used to absorb lesser amounts of salary without having to match them. But given how small they are, they probably won't matter. And the Nets are currently paying $108 million in luxury tax payments. That's not payments going to players. That is payments going to the league because their payroll is so high. Let's take a look at that payroll. Of course, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving take up a bunch of that. Kyrie Irving is a free agent this offseason. The Nets are supposedly not keen on signing Kyrie Irving to the long-term extension he wants, and in the craziest of worlds, you could see him getting dealt. However, I think that the Nets will keep them considering how well they've done this year, and at some point I do expect a more shorter term extension given to Kyrie. Maybe it'll drag out until the offseason for him to sign that extension. Meanwhile, Ben Simmons is making a max contract, and he has not been worth it for the Nets. He's been very mediocre all year, and he has not been a starting caliber player for them. This is turning out to be one of the worst contracts in the league, and it's probably unmovable. Meanwhile, Joe Harris has also struggled. He's only averaging 8 points per game right now. He's a little bit overpaid, and that might be a negative contract as well. But the Nets do have some lesser salary that they could put in play. Royce O'Neal has been very solid as a 3-and-D role player for them, so I don't think the Nets will want to part with his $9 million. Nicholas Claxton is making almost $9 million, however, he's been an integral part of the Nets defense. I don't see him getting dealt. The two most movable contracts are Seth Curry and Patty Mills, which combine for $15 million. Combined with some lesser salaries, the Nets could bring back a player making something in the $20 million range. However, if you throw Royce O'Neal into the deal, they could get up to a player in the $30 million range. Here are a look at some of those lesser salaries that the Nets could lump into a trade. Yuta Watanabe has been really good for them this year as one of the best three-point shooters in the league. Kessler Edwards is a young prospect that a team could take a flyer on. And Edmund Sumner has been solid as well. Let's take a look at the Nets' pick situation, which is extremely messy. The Nets cannot trade a pick until 2027, and they can't trade their own pick in that scenario due to the Stepien rule. They can trade their 2027 first-round pick that they get from the 76ers, however, that pick is very complicated. The Nets won't get that pick until 2 years after Philadelphia trades a first that they owe OKC. That 2027 first is also protected 1 through 8 in 27 and 28, and then turns into seconds. So that first round pick has lesser value than other first round picks would normally have. The most valuable pick that the Nets could potentially trade is their 2028 or 2029 first round pick, which they could make unprotected. That would definitely be risky, but the Nets might be willing to do that in order to go all in on this current core. The Nets also don't have a ton of second round picks, so their options will be limited in terms of upgrading this roster. However, let's look at a couple routes in which they might be able to go. As I said, the Nets need to address their rebounding issues. One of the best ways they could do that is by trading for Josh Hart, who is supposedly available from the Portland Trail Blazers and is one of the best rebounding wings in the league. This would be the best option of all the guys available for the Nets because he could be gettable for the few assets that they have, and being able to get a wing that rebounds at the level that Josh Hart does would be extremely valuable. They can obviously go for bigs. I'll look at a couple trades with big men for them, but obviously big men are generally good rebounders, and it's easy to find a big that's a good rebounder. It's much harder to find a 6'5" wing that can rebound like Josh Hart. So in this trade, I have the Nets trading Seth Curry, Yuta Watanabe, and a 2028 first round pick for Josh Hart. The pick I had top 8 protections on, however, those protections could be negotiated differently. The problem in getting Josh Hart is Seth Curry or Patty Mills are the two best salary matching pieces for him. However, I don't think the Trailblazers would have any interest in either of those guys. So the best thing would be to swing Curry or Mills to a third team in order to get the Blazers a player that they'd want more. In this trade, Seth Curry goes to the Knicks, who have been a subpar 3-point shooting team this year. Curry could obviously help out with that. And the Knicks flip Isaiah Hartenstein for him to the Blazers, who need some big depth. And Hartenstein hasn't really worked out so far in New York. Hartenstein could immediately be the backup center and upgrade over Drew Eubanks for the Blazers. Yuta Watanabe could be some shooting help off the bench. And that first round pick could be flipped for something else, or the Blazers could keep it if they want. Josh Hart has a player option this upcoming offseason, so he's very likely to be a free agent. The Nets would definitely be able to retain him though, as they would have his early bird rights. In trade number 2, I have the Nets getting Daniel Gafford from the Wizards for Cam Thomas and 2 second-round picks. This is one of those bigs that I'm talking about. The Nets could have Gafford come in and be their backup big man, and he would help them with their rebounding woes. The Wizards signed Daniel Gafford to an extension. He's going to be making around $10 million next year. However, I'm not sure the Wizards still want to pay him that extension. They have a logjam in the front court. They're in a weird position, so trading Daniel Gafford could make sense for them. The Nets could swoop in and buy low on a guy that reminded me a little bit of Nicholas Claxton when they were both coming out of the draft. Now, I'm not sure if this is enough compensation for the Wizards. However, I don't think Gafford is worth a first, so this was the best I could do without giving one up. However, the Nets might be willing to give up that weird Philadelphia 2027 first to the Wizards in order to get Gafford. Now, you could substitute this deal for a number of bigs. Naz Reid from the Timberwolves might be gettable, and he's a guy that could help with rebounding as well as space the floor off the bench for the Brooklyn Nets. He could play some power forward next to Nicholas Claxton to give them some size and give them a better rebounding 4-5 duo. And Naz Reid makes basically the exact same as Gafford, so Cam Thomas and 2 second-round picks could work for Naz Reid as well. I think Naz Reid is even a little bit more valuable than Gafford, though. He can do a lot of things offensively that Gafford can't. And the third and final trade has the Nets trading for Mo Bamba. I like Mo Bamba for the Nets because you could hypothetically play Claxton and Bamba together. Bamba can shoot the 3-ball. Claxton isn't much of a shooter, but Claxton is very mobile. You could have Claxton defensively be a rim protecting 4-man with Bamba being the center, and that would definitely help their rebounding and could be very intriguing defensively. And then on the offensive end, Claxton could be the interior big man and Bamba could be the floor spacer. In order to get Bamba, I have the Nets trading Patty Mills, Day'Ron Sharpe, and that interesting Philadelphia first-round pick. I don't think Bamba is worth the Nets trading their own 2028 or 2029 first for, but with the conditions on that Philadelphia first-round pick, I think it makes some sense. The Magic haven't been playing Bamba much lately. They do have a logjam there in the front court with Wendell Carter. Bol has broken out this year. Paolo Banchero can play some small ball 5 and plays at the power forward spot. Franz Wagner is a big forward as well, so I expect Mo Bamba to be heavily shot by the Magic at this year's trade deadline. The Nets might be able to trade only seconds for him, which they could do as a follow-up deal to the Josh Hart trade, and just go all in on a couple guys that can rebound the ball, one a big, one a wing. Josh Hart brings some playmaking ability, Mo Bamba brings some floor spacing ability, and that would be the dream trade deadline for the Brooklyn Nets. In terms of my prediction for what I think the Nets do at the deadline, I think that they aren't able to trade for Josh Hart. I think he'll have a lot of suitors on the market, and the Blazers don't necessarily have to trade him, so I could see him staying in Portland. However, I do think they'll land a big man of some sorts to shore up that center depth and to give them another rebounder to help with their rebounding issues. Anyway, that's a wrap for this trade deadline preview. Let me know what team you want to see me do next. I have some interesting interviews coming up for a couple of these soon, so subscribe so you don't miss those. And once again, this trade deadline preview is brought to you by BetOnline. Use that promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for 50% rewards. I'm out of here. I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, peace.